welcome everyone. Yeah, thanks for getting up early as well. So my session is called, and as you can hear, I also have a little bit trouble speaking because I had a lot of fun last night. I hope you all had a lot of fun yesterday as well. But I hope we'll manage. Yeah, my talk is called Not Everything is a Node. That's kind of a play. I don't know how many of you have been in the Drupal community for a longer time. Basically during like Drupal 6 times, this was like the mantra that everything is a node, because nodes had like really cool features. You can put comments on nodes, you can put like fields on nodes or whatever. And so before that, people like a lot of times created their own data structures, and then there was like this movement to make everything into nodes, because then you can use all these cool features. And with Drupal 7 and Drupal 8 in particular, we got this super fancy, cool new entity API. And so a lot of content modules in particular moved to using that entity API. So for example, if you have like the commerce suite, you have a lot of different entity types. They don't use nodes. They use, products and displays and all that, and web form. You have web form submission entities and all these sorts of modules that are now using the entity API. But when it comes to site building, a lot of the times people are still used to this node mantra, and yeah, you probably can't really read it. That was kind of the point, that you have a lot of sites, at least from my experience, you still have a lot of sites where you just have a ton of node types that do completely different things. You start out with like an article and a page, and then you start using the normal basic page for stuff, and then you need a kind of a different kind of static page. So you create a new node type, and then you get like events, and then you get different kind of events. And 3 years later, you want to have like job postings or ad stuff or whatever. And so after like 5 years on your site, you have like 25 different node types. And what also happens is that over time, you get like business logic attached to these different node types. So you have like all sorts of pre-save hooks and insert hooks and whatever. And they all need to check on like 10 different node types. And then if it's one of those 3, then do this. And then if it's the other one, do this. And if it's one of those other 7, then do this. And yeah, that's kind of gets unwieldy. And the entity API, and that's kind of that's sort of the introduction. That's kind of the point of the talk. The entity API actually enables us to get rid of that, at least to an extent, and to create custom entities for our own use cases to make things more manageable. So that's sort of the point, that yeah, you can create custom entities on your site to contain business logic that's sort of related to each other, to separate it from other entities that yeah, maybe do something else, and that makes the site more manageable for site builders, but also from a code perspective in terms of code organization. So that's kind of yeah, that's kind of the catch or the point of this talk that I want to give today. And the hook is that I want to basically show you how easy it is to create a custom entity, and it's that easy that I'm just going to do it right now live as part of this session. Sort of as proof that it's not a huge thing. So that's kind of the point. Yeah. So the agenda, I'll just go through a quick introduction. Then it's going to be mostly live coding, and then I'm going to explain what I'm doing and how we're going to go about creating this entity. And then afterwards, there'll be like a quick outlook, and I'm pretty sure there'll be time for questions as well. Yeah, and at any point, if you have a question, just shout at me. I think the more interaction, the better. Yeah, so quick introduction. I'm Tobias. If you don't know me, I'm tstoeckler on Drupal.org. I work for a company called Rask, which is like a radio company, not a classical Drupal shop. So yeah, if you ever have radio needs, then hit us up. But yeah, that's pretty much it about me. As a little context for this session, this is me 10 years ago. And I didn't just put up this slide to cry about how much younger I looked back then. But this was actually at Drupal Dev Days Saget. And as you can see, so this was the title of my talk. So the title was a bit different, but I pretty much gave a similar session 10 years ago, just to sort of show that, yeah, on the one hand, this has been like, yeah, a lot of things still apply in the same way from 10 years ago, but also that we've come a long way. So basically, during that session, we did like the, or during Drupal Dev Days Saget, we did like the initial patches for getting like the, yeah, a lot of the fundamentals of the Entity API in core, and it was basically like we were writing the patches, and then it was like the first time that it came back green, so it passed all the tests, and then like an hour later, I gave this talk, and so the first sentence of my talk was like, okay, if you want to follow along, you need to apply like this 500K patch to your Drupal code base, and then everything will maybe somehow work. And so from that point, we've come a long way, as you can see. But there's also still a lot to do. Yeah, so just as a sort of little bit of a primer and to maybe at least get you active enough this morning to at least raise your hand, I want to do a little bit of a straw poll. Since, yeah, everyone is tired and no one wants to, everyone is always shy in these sorts of things to raise your hand, the idea was that I'm going to ask a couple of questions, and I think for the first question, pretty much everyone should be raising their hands, and then probably some hands will go down over time. So the question is, I have installed Drupal. Okay, that's good. I have created a module. How many of you have done that? So a couple hands going down, okay. I have created an entity type before. Nice. That's good. That's good. I have used a custom entity type on a project. Nice. Okay, that's good actually. Then maybe we can, yeah. And the last one, I've been telling people how great the Entity API is for 10 years. Okay. Maybe. But that's actually cool. If a lot of people are doing that, maybe we can just fly through some of the basics and get to some of the more advanced stuff more quickly. But on the other hand, yeah, if at any point yeah, you want to interject or I'm going to quickly, then just let me know. And that's basically the point where I switch to PHP Storm. Yeah, so let's see how that works. Oh, I guess I didn't think about that. Then now I need to switch the monitor setup. I should have thought of that, but we'll manage. Yeah, and then I can presentation mode. All right. So yeah, I hope that yeah, you'll be able to see everything. So this is basically just a Drupal Drupal 10.3 checkout. Yeah, I need to orient myself a little bit here. This is, yeah, so nothing special. The only thing that I have done is I've installed the site. Maybe I can show you. Yeah, so I just installed a site and I enabled Entity API. So the content module Entity API, because yeah, it just gives, there's a bunch of things that I will get to later that that Entity API provides out of the box that makes a couple of things just a lot easier. And yeah, that's basically it. So I'm going to create a new module. The case that I often use, or that I almost always use for these things, is an event entity, because I think that's like a nice case for showcasing some. First of all, it's like a common case that you have on a Drupal site, but also yeah, I think it's a good case to demonstrate some of the business logic that can be attached to this. So I'm just going to create a. Wanted to prepare this actually. Forgot about that, but that's fine. We can do that. And we want this to depend on entity. Actually, just so I don't get lost in time, I'm going to set a quick timer. So what is it, 30? Yeah, that's good. So when this rings, then I have to be finished with everything. Okay, and so now I have a module that will hopefully be installable, and then now I'm going to create the entity class. So since a bunch of you have created this before, I'm not going to talk too much about like classes and auto-loading and whatever, and plugins in Drupal. I'm just going to create this class. Also, just in case you are not aware of this, Drush also has a nice tool to do all this work for you. So Drush can generate entities for you. It's just that sort of the point of the session is that you can also do this yourself. So that's why I'm doing it here. But that's not to say that it's not a useful thing to use the Drush output. So basically, yeah, maybe I'll just write a little bit. Yeah, so if you've done this before, or maybe yeah, basically like a lot of other things in Drupal, you can create an entity. It's kind of like a plugin, so you have a class that contains your business logic. As with most things in Drupal, Drupal provides like a base class that you can extend, and to provide metadata about this entity type, you have to create an annotation. This is actually in Drupal now moving to the new PHP attributes. So I don't know if most, but a whole bunch of plugins by now are using the native attributes. Entities, not yet, but I'm pretty sure it will come in, I don't know, 10.4 or 11 or whatever. So it will be a different syntax, but the point or the idea will be similar. It will just be a little bit better with like IDE integration. Yeah, we will have an event entity type, and in order for Drupal to, we basically need yeah, so basically one of the first things we need to do is to tell Drupal sort of in terms of the data storage how we want this to look. So we want to store our event data in a table called events. And for now, we're not going to deal with translation and revisions. If we were to do that, we could also specify tables for this translation and revision data. And the entity API has the concept of entity keys. So let me just write that first. So basically, we will be designing our event entity type, and our event will consist of a bunch of fields that we will be declaring in a bit. And there's a couple of special fields that have sort of special meaning in Drupal. So obviously, an ID is a special thing because that's how you load an entity. But the ID field in Drupal doesn't necessarily need to be called ID. And all of you know this because for nodes it's called NID, and for taxonomy terms it's called TID. And this sort of mapping is what we can do here in this entity keys. So we could also, if we wanted, because we follow this pattern, to have our events, like have the database column for our events, the ID column be EID for event ID. We could call it EID here, but there's really no reason to do that, in my opinion. So we can also just call it ID, and that's what we're going to do here. And I think, yeah, I'm just gonna leave it at that for now. So we basically have set up our basic data structure. And yeah, so now what we can actually do, we can now actually start the data modeling process. So this is where we define our fields and where we sort of start thinking about the business logic attached to our custom entity. And to do this, there's this. I can actually close that. By the way, yeah, if there's anything you cannot read or something, just let me know. How this works is that every entity type has a method called base field definitions. And yeah, as the name sort of suggests, these base fields are these fields that are sort of inherent to our entity, and can have business logic attached. So base field, the name base field is in contrast to bundle fields. So obviously you all know what bundles are, and this also suggests that we can also have. We probably won't get to it here, but we can also use the bundle system. So we can have an event entity type, but still have different event types. So still use like different bundles if we still want to have this variation. But the base fields are common to all events in this case. And again, Drupal basically provides a basic implementation, which in this case is nice enough to provide the ID field and the UUID field for us, so we don't need to do that. So we can actually start basically designing our entity type the way we want it. So for example, we're going to have an event title and a date field for an event. So let's start with the title. It's just going to be a normal string. So we are going to just create a new string field, and we're going to give it a label, title, and that's pretty much it. Well, we could, for example, also say it doesn't really make sense to have an event without a title, so we're going to make it required. Yeah, that makes sense. And we also want to have a date. So we're going to create a date field and call it date. And also going to make that required. And then from there, so what we're going to do is we're going to have a field called attendees. So this could be like the use case where you want to track obviously attendees to an event. I think it's a pretty nice use case, as we'll hopefully see in a minute, to capture some business logic or to have some attached business logic. So we're going to create an entity reference field here, and our attendees are going to be Drupal user entities. We could also, like if on your custom site you would be using profile module or something like that, we could also do that, or a custom person entity or something like that. But here we're just going to use an entity reference field for users, just to keep it a little bit more simple. This one's not going to be required. But we want this to be a multiple value field. So by default, if we just create our fields here, they're going to all be single value. But just like in the field UI, when you attach fields to your nodes, you can select if it's a single value or multiple value. We can do this similarly here as well. So we're just going to do that. It's a little bit looks a little bit strange if you've never seen that before. This is basically the same as setting the unlimited checkbox or whatever in the field UI. And let me just have a sip of water. See how we're going. Fair enough. And what we're also going to do, because this this is, I think, a nice case for this like custom business logic. We're going to create a field to track the maximum amount of attendees, and then we can use this for validation. So I can show you basically like how to create a custom validation constraint. So this is just going to be an integer. And now, and this is also sort of why I like to do this. Now we can start to sort of think about our data modeling. So for this example, the maximum attendees will be an integer, but it only ever makes sense to that it's a positive number. So we can, for example, say the minimum number should be 0 here. We could also even say, like, since it's not required, we could even say the minimum should be 1, because there's really no point in an event with 0 people. But yeah, that's a little bit philosophical, maybe.
Question?
Yeah.
I often think, what about reliability entities? What's the advantage of having these fields in code versus just configuring them? I mean, what I often do is just create an entity myself and then just do auto field configuration in UI, because I found out that, so what I learned, maybe I'm wrong, but this is only valid for installation, right? When you install the module, then these fields will be created. But if you change anything after that, it will be in config anywhere.
No, that's not correct. So well, basically, yeah, what we're going to see, and that's actually why I didn't install the module yet. Yeah, so when we install the module, Drupal will install the entity type. When I then later go on and add fields, then I need to take care of that by writing an update hook, because I need to sort of inform Drupal that something has happened. But there's nothing that happens in config then generally. So, I mean, you obviously can use, I'm going to show that as well. You can also use the field UI to create fields as well. So basically, the point is, and this is what I'm getting to now, is that if you have fields that have business logic attached, from my point of view, it's a good practice to actually define those in code. Like if you're using them in code, obviously it's not a hard line. You're never going to get that 100%, right? Because things change and whatever. But sort of as a best practice, in my opinion, if you're going to use it in code and rely on it in code and have it like sort of be a core part of the of your application or of your website, then it makes sense to also define it in code. That's sort of obviously, yeah, you can do that differently as well, but that's sort of my mantra. Yeah, go ahead.
Just as an addition, so what Tobias is doing here is defining base fields in entities, right? So entities can have base fields and configurable fields, as you said. So the base fields, I guess, will be just the part fields that are going to share between any bundles in the future, I guess, or something like this. So it's two different type of fields, right? So the base one are probably better kept in code, I guess. Base fields.
Yeah, but still, if you have a lifestyle, the difference is, in my view, not so big, because it's the config anyway. As soon as you have installed it, it's in config.
No, it's not.
It's not. Base fields are not config entities. They can be if you will change something in the base fields.
I think I know. I think you're talking about the fact that Drupal basically records the installation state of an entity type. So if you then change something, Drupal will detect it and say like there's mismatched entity field definitions. So there is sort of this state, but it's not in config. I mean, that's kind of the whole point, that it's not in config. Yeah. Anyways, and again, this is not to say that you're not supposed to use field UI or whatever, but this is just sort of my thing. Yeah, but going in that vein, sort of this is this would be the case of yeah, actually having some business logic attached to this. So like I said, I created a maximum attendees field, so we're going to add a validation constraint that actually satisfies this, because for now, yeah, this could be any number of attendees, and I also cannot. It doesn't make sense to sort of here limit the amount of attendees in this field definition, because it can vary by event. But so I will need to validate this on an event basis, the number of attendees, and sort of as a useful utility, I want to also show the number of remaining attendees, because that's maybe something I want to show on the front end. So in the back end, I want the editor to select the number of maximum attendees, but I don't want to have people manually subtract that in their head. I want to actually show the number of remaining attendees. Or I also, and for this sort of thing, Drupal has a really nice thing called computed fields. And this is also an advantage of defining the fields in code, because computed fields are not really available for configurable fields, because there's it just doesn't work that way. So that's what I'm going to do now here, sort of as a last thing, and then we're going to try it out first. Actually, maybe let's just try this out first, and then create this computed field later. So this is our basic data structure, and so I can also create this, because the computed field will not be stored in the database anyways. It's not an issue to create that later. So what we can do now is actually install this module, and then hopefully, if I've done everything right, which is unlikely, always a couple errors. Class couldn't find constant ID. That's interesting. Okay. That makes sense. This is one of those things that will get better with the attributes, because then you can't make these stupid mistakes anymore, because your IDE will tell you. This is a funny one. So this is nice that we're hitting that. So now I've actually, this is a great for a live demo. I've actually created, I'm now in this weird zombie state where Drupal has installed the module, but there was an error creating this, the table. So in theory, since there's a test site, I could just reinstall, but this is annoying, so there's no really nice workaround. What I'm just going to do, I'm actually just going to create a table now, and then uninstall the module, and then Drupal will remove the table and then create it properly the next time. So let's just create, I think it needs to have an ID. Let's see how that works. Let's see how good my SQL skills are. Not that bad. Now that works. And now that works as well. And now we can actually see that we should have an event table. Okay, my SQL skills aren't as good as I thought. Show columns. No? Fair enough. But there's nothing there, so isn't it show columns? Because I'm using SQLite here locally, so that's why it doesn't use show column. I wanted to show you the columns. That's unfortunate. Let me see if I can quickly add this as a data source.
Is there any code contributed in the audience? And not describe tag, the describe event.
Sorry, describe?
Describe event.
Okay. No. I will try really quickly.
When you uninstall the module and
Where did it put my database? I should maybe have checked that. Sorry. Database in SQLite. Okay.
right. when I install it.
Where am I here?
Yeah, and if it isn't there, what is the reason? Most likely the reason is what happened, so why can't we just, okay, if
Let's see how that works.
just continue.
Yeah, like the important thing is that the table
Fair enough.
is there, not that the table has been deleted.
Okay, that worked.
That's what you care about. The table
So quick detour. Okay, so we do have an event table here. That's cool. Yeah, you can see that right there. And we can see it created our fields here. And for the attendees, because it's a multi-value field, it created its own table. So that's also nice. And we didn't need to worry about that. So far, so good. So, yeah, I'm actually a bit slower than I thought. So let's go back, because now we can't, so far we can't do anything with that. It's just in the database. So, well, we could use it like from an API perspective, create entities, load entities, save entities, but we obviously want to have a UI for that. So let's add a UI. And Drupal allows us to basically auto-generate the more or less the complete UI without doing much work. We just need to specify a bunch of handlers that attach a business. So handlers are sort of this concept that they take over, or they take care of a bit of a functionality for entities. So I just attach some handlers. So for example, I want to have a form for my entities. So I attach some form handlers and so on. And so let's do that. And for most use cases, Drupal provides base implementations as well. So I just need to sort of register them here. I don't actually need to write any code. So I have an add and edit form. I also want a delete form maybe. That's a different class. I want to have a list of events as well. This is one of those things. There's actually not a proper base, base implementation, as we'll see. So this is one of those annoying things. I need to also attach some handlers for the routing. So just the form in itself is not much use without a page to access it under. So going to add some routing. And also what we, let's add a permission. So Drupal creates a permission for us. Also, and this is one of those things that's a nicety of the contrib entity API module. There's this concept of permission providers, so I don't need to have like create, edit, delete permissions and all that. That one I actually forgot what the class is, so let's just use that one. And similarly, there's an access. Let's see. An access handler, access control handler, which then sort of, uses those permissions. So let's register that as well. Let's see. So we have the routing, we have that. Probably forgot something else, but one thing that we do need to do, now we have sort of all these handlers that are we've enabled them to attach functionality and to add this UI to our entity type. but we actually need to tell Drupal where to put the UI and basically under which paths we want our entity to be able to be accessed. And this is what we do with the links key. So yeah, we can say we want our view page, the canonical is the view page, to be under /event. And we want like the list to be maybe under admin content. And then we want to add an add form. And maybe an edit form and so on. Yeah, I think that will do for now. Let's see if that works. And yeah, since I didn't change any of the data structure, I can just clear the cache and see if there were any syntax errors. So far, so good. And now we can actually see if that worked. Can I just put that? No, it didn't work. So this is my site. And now, in theory, I should have an event list. Yeah, so that actually worked. So that's nice. This is one of those annoying things out of the box. I have this ugly entities thing here. I don't want that. I wanted to say events properly. But obviously, Drupal doesn't know like how to do that unless I tell it to. There's the concept of a collection label. I can use that, and then Drupal will use that and make my UI a little bit nicer. Also here for this event entities thing, this is the plural label. So there are a bunch of labels which are, always looks a little bit unwieldy to see all these different labels, but yeah, it does kind of make sense to have that. There's also another one which I'm leaving out now.
Where do you find all the options that are available? Is there some good place to look in
like in general for these things? So honestly, basically just look at what Node does. Is unfortunately still the best answer. I would like the answer to be different, but that's, I think, the best answer. Yeah. So yeah, this is okay. So we now have a list. We would like to have this nice little blue button here to actually add an entity. And of course, we could write like 5 lines of YAML, but instead we can also write 3 lines of an annotation to generate these 5 lines of YAML for us. And there is, just like for routing, there is a local action provider. Where is it? There it is. So let's use that. And since we're already added, we might as well add the local task provider as well. That will get like the view and edit tabs. Let's see if that worked. Nice. So now I have a beautiful event form. Except there's actually not that great because I can't actually do anything. And this is because I haven't told Drupal how I want my form to look. So this is basically if you're using field UI, where at which point you would be going to the manage form display and to configure like which fields you want to display on your form in which order and with which widget and so on. And but we can also do this from code. And Drupal has this is what is called display options, and yeah. Basically, the nice thing is that out of the box, Drupal basically figures out the default widgets and settings and blah, blah, blah by itself. I just need to basically set the order by specifying a weight. So I'm just going to enable all of my fields. I'm just going to use like ascending weights. I always just leave some room for fields in between, but that's basically up to you. Yeah, I'm a little bit behind on time. So we're just going to cover the basics. I guess I'm not actually going to get into the, maybe we'll just do the validation actually. Let's see. So that's nice. I get all of that for free. So yeah, since I'm a little bit behind on time, maybe actually let's just do the computed field, because that's always a nice thing. Yeah, so I'm going to set my attendee count to 4. Oh, I don't have any users here. I forgot that to create that. And yeah, so now I created an event. Now you also see why I said there's not really a sensible default list builder. Yeah, because this is actually the event. So as you I'm not sure if you can read it. So this is actually the event that I just created, but it's yeah, not very useful. Yeah, but we have created an event. So for the display side, the same thing applies. We now actually have a route for this event, but we haven't told Drupal that it should actually display something there. So let's do that as well. Yeah, and then as a last sort of thing, we'll quickly create a computed field, and then I guess I'm out of time already. Yeah, so that's that. Yeah, actually maybe I'm going to, yeah, because I'm way out of time, I'm just going to cheat and yeah, actually I'm going to stop the demo now. Sorry about that. I'm just going to fly over some things that I prepared. So I'm going to give you the link to this thing anyway. So this is where I sort of prepared what I was attempting to do. Just to sort of show you how easy this is to work with computed fields, and this is also, like I said, one of those benefits. Yeah, you can really easily just create one of these field classes and then do the actual computation however you want to do that. So like the maximum amount minus the count of the attendees, and then you have your computed value. Same with the validation is also just a very small amount of code. Here, for example, I actually use this remaining computed field and say if there's less than 0 remaining, then I just add a violation. And this all integrates really nicely with the form and also with like JSON API if you're using JSON API. So this is yeah, what I wanted to show you. Unfortunately, I didn't get around to that. Yeah, I think that's where I leave it. So we didn't actually get very far. Sorry about that. Yeah, and I have a bunch of slides, like, but those are, let's just skip those anyways. Yeah, so maybe I'll just open it up for questions now. If there's any question or anything that you'd in particular like to see, I can maybe show you, or maybe I will show you go to the slide with the, with the link. So this is something I prepared for the session, which is basically a more, basically exactly what I was starting here, but a more full-fledged example actually with translations and revisions and all the stuff I showed, but yeah.
So what I get from is that if you create base fields within the entity type, what you're really doing is that you are adding them all into the same table, making queries much faster than having fieldable UI.
Yeah.
But and I've seen a lot of explanations in doing that, but I haven't seen a good explanation on, okay, but I would like to have two fields also that are configurable and open for the user to add them. So how would you go ahead and do that?
Well, basically you can completely mix and match. So you can super easily enable a field UI for this as well. Where am I here? There. Basically, it's just it's one of those things. Again, you need to tell Drupal where to put the UI, and then you will just have the regular field UI for your events as well. For that to sort of work in the Drupal-y way, what I've done here is actually created like an event type config entity to attach those fields to. Yeah, since we're out of time, but I can maybe you can either try it out locally, or I can just show you later. But there's no this custom entity, and also defining these base fields doesn't limit you in any way to use the field UI to create additional fields. Also for this manage form display or manage display, there's no downside to that. But that you don't look like I answered your question properly. I'm sorry. Any other questions? Maybe we can clear that up later. Yeah.
How do you make decision? Like in this case, it's better to have custom entities than the node. What are the main reasons for that?
So for me, that's a good question. There are a couple of ones. So for me, a classical one is, if I want to have sort of bundles for this specific case, like if I have, for example, events and I have 3 different types of events, virtual events, on-site events, or whatever, and I want to have sort of differentiations between them. If I use nodes, I have like 3 different node types, but they are all sort of similar, but then different to a lot of other node types. So that's sort of one thing that where I use custom entities. Also when I really have like business logic. I mean, this one field was maybe a poor example, but if you actually are have a lot of logic and like computed fields, stuff like that. That's where I like custom entities.
I can actually answer that.
Yeah.
So I got an answer for that question a long time ago. And Event is actually a very good showcase on doing that, is if you have events and then you would have like RSVP to an event. So you have one event and you have 5,000 people RSVPing to that event, and you have 50 events. 50 times 5,000 is 250,000? Yeah. And if you create 250,000 nodes, and if you have it all in the nodes table, what you're doing is that you are cluttering the nodes table very much with indexing the database.
Yep.
So by having it as a custom entity in a custom table, you are just indexing the RSVP field instead of the table instead of the node table.
Yep.
So that is the major benefit of having custom entities, is that you can, just database indexing.
Yeah. For me, and also a good case is like internal sort of entities. If you have like your organizational structure or something like that, or departments or something like that, you can use taxonomy for that. But again, that's sort of the case, then you end up having like 25 different taxonomies. So that's, for example, where I also use like custom entities just for some small data stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I have one logical question. Why this is still not in core?
Well, this is pretty, sorry, then I was maybe unclear. So this is, the whole API is pretty much completely in core. Everything.
What then inside entity contrib module then itself?
The only thing that I used the contrib module for was this, which I didn't actually get around to showing you, so it was kind of pointless, was the permissions. So basically now when I go to yeah, when I go to the permissions page, I have like the view event permission and stuff like that. If you don't need that, or if you want to, yeah, this basically, that's what's not in core. The rest is in core. This is actually what I wanted to talk about a little bit. So there are still some things missing. Basically, the idea, yeah, is to move more and more stuff of this content module into core. Yeah, why are a lot of things not in core? I don't know, because it's hard and yeah, it's annoying to get stuff into core. But yeah, most of the stuff is actually there. Yeah.
I think that's everything. No, one more question. Okay.
Thank you, Tobias, for the session. I was waiting for the end of the questions. If you like this presentation, which I'm pretty sure you'll do, feel free, if you're curious what's underneath the entities, feel invited to my session, today's session, just after the lunch in the room just next doors about type data. It might be a good extension for this and maybe also answer some questions here. Thank you very much.
Cool. Thank you.